So let me just show you. I broke up all of that corn bread in little pieces, okay? After I took it out the oven, alrighty? And what I'm going to add to this cornbread mixture is I have some celery. That's celery right there. I add celery. Then I add onion. Then I add green pepper. And I like a lot of vegetables. I like a lot of vegetables in there. It counteracts the bread or whatever. Okay, and then I just sort of gently mix all of that together. Oh, it just starts to smell good right off the bat. I mix all of that together like that. And then I use sage. Okay, this is sage. And I don't measure anything. I just sprinkle. I sprinkle sage in there. I have poultry seasoning. I never can say that word, poultry. But I have that seasoning. I don't measure. Coming out too slow. I don't measure. I just sprinkle. Okay? My grandmother, Henrietta Johnson, never measured anything. That's why she didn't leave any recipes, because she just threw stuff in her food. And she was the best cook on this side of the universe. Ooh, I miss my grandmama's cooking. Okay, and then I buy this what's called McKay's Chicken Style Instant Broth and Seasoning. I use this in my vegetables. I put this on any kind of poultry meat that I make. Oh, it gives it a good flavor. I put this in my greens. It gives it a real good flavor. Like I said, I just sprinkle. Alrighty. And then I put a little bit of seasoning, salt. I don't usually cook with salt, but you know, when I'm making something special, I will use a little bit. Alrighty, and then I do a little black pepper, just a little bit. And then I stir that all up in there like that. I just stir it all up, get it all mixed up in there. Ooh, get it all mixed. Mix it up real good, you guys. All right, and once I get it all mixed in there like this, this is homemade. Now, what I don't do, some people, and that's up to cooks. Everybody cook different. I do not like raisins. I do not like nuts, and I do not like oysters in my dressing. I do it homemade like my grandmother used to do, eliminated all that stuff. I know people like those things, nuts, raisins, and oysters in their dressing, but I don't use that. I just like plain old-fashioned dressing. So
excuse me, Queen. Miss Myrna asked, what is that with the white top?
With the white top, this is the McKay's Chicken Style Instant Broth and Seasoning. I use this, Myrna, in all of my vegetables. When I cook greens, green beans, broccoli, asparagus, whatever, I put this in it rather than using meat. I don't do the pork thing no more. I don't do the salt pork or the jowl or the ham hocks and all that anymore. I cook with this, and it gives it a real good seasoning. And you can get this if you live in the Toledo area at K&J's Meat Market. Okay? So I got all of my ingredients stirred up in here right now. And what I'm going to do is add some chicken broth. 100% natural chicken broth. Just a little.
And for the people who just joined, what are you making, Queen?
I am making homemade dressing, okay? And that's what I'm making, homemade from scratch. This is homemade cornbread. I don't use stovetop. I don't use bread. I do not like bread crumbled up. Some people use that, but I choose just to use straight up cornbread. So I put a little bit of this broth in there. And I might just put a little more. I don't want to put too much of this broth in there. Reason being that in the morning, when I put my turkey in the oven, I will get up and put that baby in the oven about 6, 7 o'clock. I use all of the drippings off of my turkey, which will go in this dressing. So I don't want to put too much broth because I don't want it to be too wet and juicy and stuff like that. So I just put a little bit in there, just so that it can just get all seasoned up in there like that.
Tyrone Patrick asks, you don't season your greens with no meat?
No, I stopped using meat in my greens probably about 6-7 years ago. I don't do the salt pork, I don't do the ham hocks or the jowl, because if you notice, if you put your greens in the refrigerator, you know, as they are left over and you go to take them out the next morning, you'll have that greasy film all over the top of your greens, and that greasy film is what goes into your body and clogs up potentially your arteries. And that's how people can die from heart problems or strokes or whatever like that. So I stopped using that. This is the best seasoning that I use, and it makes you think that you got some salt pork and ham hocks and jowls and stuff in there. This is what I use.
All right, back to making the dressing.
Yeah, so anyway, I got a little bit of my broth. So what I'm going to do, you guys, I'm going to cover this with my press and seal. And I'm going to cover this and I'm going to refrigerate this before I go to bed, a little later, okay? And I'm just going to let that sit, and that's going to marinate overnight. I let it marinate overnight. I'm going to sit that aside, okay? Now I'm going to work on my bird.